The last couple of videos on the channel have been about how the GRE is becoming increasingly important for graduate school applications here in Germany. These include some of the top ranked universities making GRE a mandatory part of the requirements, such as TU Munich, RWTH Aachen, or TU Dortmund, to name a few. I know that for someone who has never taken the GRE or is preparing for it, it can seem very intimidating. And that is why I wanted to share my timeline in this video of how I scored a 331 out of 340 in the GRE. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Kaushik Srivatsan. I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Goa College of Engineering, and currently I'm pursuing my master's in computational sciences in engineering at TU Braunschweig. Let's quickly recap what the GRE is. The GRE, or the Graduate Record Exam, is a competitive exam that is used to evaluate students applying for graduate programs. So this means it is only for those interested in doing masters. The GRE has three sections: the quantitative reasoning dealing with high school mathematics, verbal reasoning which tests your English language skills, and finally the analytical writing which tests your ability to write an academic level essay. Each of these sections, the quantitative and the verbal reasoning, is scored on a scale of 130 to 170, and the analytical writing is scored on a scale of 0 to 6. Now that you know in general what the GRE is, let's start with my timeline. Like the story of most students in the past 3 to 4 years, my story also begins with the lockdown in the pandemic in the year 2020. I was at home, and after a couple of months of confusion and not knowing what to do, I decided to take a step back and evaluate what the steps are for my future. And that's when I decided in May of 2020 that I'd like to apply for the graduate school programs in the upcoming year. Having looked at and understood the requirements for a successful application, I decided to strengthen my application by fulfilling as many requirements as I could. For me, this included learning German, giving the TOEFL exam, and of course, preparing and taking the GRE. Although I decided to take the GRE, I was not preparing for it in a very planned manner. I was just aimlessly trying to do things here and there. Let me tell you, it's not a good idea to do that. You need to have proper deadlines and proper plan. And that is when I decided that the timeline for me would be to be ready with everything related to my application by October of 2020, which meant I had roughly 4 months to prepare for the GRE. Now I had a deadline, but I still needed a proper plan in order to know which steps to take in which time in the coming 4 months. So the first thing I ever did to prepare for the GRE was to take a blind mock test in June of 2020. The only purpose of this test was to assess my quantitative and verbal reasoning skills before the start of preparation. It gave me a good idea of where I stood and how much preparation effort was needed from my side. The rest of June I spent in gathering as many resources as I needed, including vocabulary lists, question banks, and mock tests. By mid to end of June, I had already started going through the vocabulary list and learning as many GRE words as I could. At the start of July, I started going through strategies to solve the questions from the quantitative reasoning as well as the verbal reasoning section. This included going through not only the practice questions but also a detailed breakdown of the actual solutions. I was not timing myself while solving the practice questions during this phase because my main purpose was to get as many questions right and not to solve them in a timely manner. By mid of July, most of my days looked very similar. I started off the day with roughly 200 to 300 vocabulary flashcards from the vocabulary list which I had gathered. Then I used to spend my afternoons in solving a few dozen, if not hundreds of practice problems in both the verbal reasoning as well as the quantitative reasoning section. And I ended my day usually with 1 or 2 essays from the analytical writing section. By end of July, I was very confident in my preparation, and I decided that I will book a test date and aim for that test date with my rest of my preparation. Fortunately, because of the pandemic, ETS, who are the official test providers of the GRE, were offering a home test, and I decided to book a test date on the 14th of September 2020, which meant I had roughly 2 months in which I had to finish the rest of my preparation. I ended July with the very same routine: wake up in the morning, do a bunch of flashcards, spend 3 to 4 hours in the afternoon solving as many questions as I could for both the quantitative and the verbal reasoning, and end the day with at least 2 essays from each of the sections of the analytical writing. A small note here: the earlier version of the GRE had 2 essays which the student had to approach. One was the analyze an argument essay, and the other was an analyze an issue essay. Since September of 2023, this has come down to just 1 essay, and that is just the analyze an issue essay. Roughly for the first 2 weeks in August of 2020, I had to put my GRE preparation on hold as I prepared for and took the TOEFL exam. But once I finished the TOEFL exam, I resumed back up with the same routine that I was following in July. The only difference was that now I had introduced another aspect in my preparation, and that was to give mock tests. This is when I was timing myself in the questions and I felt confident enough to give the mock test. Roughly every 3 or 4 days, I used to give one mock test in order to judge and track my progress. This might sound a bit nerdy to a few people, but I was having a lot of fun solving the practice questions for the GRE. I started with roughly a few dozen problems in July, but by the time I was done, I think I had solved like 2,500 to 3,000 questions. It might seem very crazy to you, but at that time, this number did not seem that big to me. And I guess that is why I was very well prepared. By the start of September, I was pretty much done with my preparation. I was not solving too many questions because, let's be honest, I had pretty much exhausted all of the questions which I had gathered. So most of my days leading up to the exam were very simple. I was just revising the flashcards which I had and just going through some of the strategies and writing essays in the end of the day in order to just judge my writing ability. I had saved only one of the official mock tests for a couple of days till before the exam, and I decided to take it exactly 2 days before the exam. I was very happy with the score that I got in this mock test, and it was pretty much close to the final score which I actually got. Then came the date of the exam, 14th of September 2020. I was very relaxed, especially because I was at home because of the home test, and the exam experience was very good for me. Like went through each of the sections having no trouble. I took my break in the middle, something which is not there in the shorter version of the GRE, and I was done with the exam in the allotted time. Because of the computer based and multiple choice nature of the GRE, the quantitative reasoning and verbal reasoning scores are pretty much available to you by the time you finish the exam. I was very happy because, of course, who wouldn't be happy? I scored a 331 out of 340. In the end, I ended up scoring 168 in the quantitative reasoning section and 163 in the verbal reasoning section. The only thing which was left for me to receive as a score was the analytical writing, which I got about a week or two later. And yes, I got a 5 out of 6 in that too, and I was very happy with the entire process. Not only had I built a very good system to study, but the system was tested and proven because I was able to score very well. And that was it. That was my timeline and experience in preparing for and taking the GRE in the year 2020. I know that some of you watching right now might be thinking that this is only a highlights reel or a highlights version of how I actually took the GRE or I prepared for it. But I'm not actually diving into the specific strategies of how I actually scored a 331. Trust me, if I add all of those into a YouTube video, we will be sitting here for a long time. And that is why I have made a dedicated masterclass for the GRE. I will be covering all aspects of preparing for the GRE, and I will share my techniques and strategies in allowing you the opportunity to score as high as I did, or even better for that matter. It is a modular 4-part course. Part 1 of the course is completely free and is live right now. You can click the link in the description and sign up for the course and go through it at no charge. Thank you for watching the video.